Every morning when she went out, she would place the doll on her bed with its limbs stretched. But when she returned home, she would find it on the bed with its arms and legs in a different position. Sometimes it would be found sitting with its arms crossed, sometimes kneeling down in front of her, and sometimes outstretched arms pointing at something unknown. This surprised her, but what was the secret of this unusual phenomenon? In the year 1970, Deidre Bernard's mother thought it best to present her daughter with a Raggedy Ann doll to cheer her up, since studying for her nurse's exam seemed to take a toll on her, and the pretty little doll would cheer her up and add a fun installment to her apartment. Deidre loved her gift and would take great care of it. However, some strange occurrences following the doll made her conclude that something was not right with it. It was one night when she returned home with Laura Clifton, a trainee nurse, and her roommate, and her fiancé, Cal Randall, when they found the doll kneeling before them with its big black eyes looking right at them. This shocked all of them, as Deidre had placed the doll on her bed just like usual before going out. Having no explanation for the unusual occurrence, they tried to make the doll kneel again, but it always flopped down as it had no joints, making it impossible for her to have been kneeling down, which she had. They could only conclude that some mysterious force had possessed the doll. But the strange phenomena never stopped. In fact, it heightened by a degree. They suddenly started receiving notes written with a pencil on parchment paper all around the apartment with messages like "Help us" and "Help Cal," even though they didn't have any of those things in the house. They assumed that someone was breaking into their house, so they rearranged the furniture and put marks over the windows for it to leave a trace when someone entered the house. However, it didn't work, as they found nothing, and the doll continued moving from room to room and changing its posture repeatedly. Their breaking point was when one day they arrived home to find blood on the doll's hands, with 3 blood spots on its chest, and they were terrified. They called a medium for help. The clairvoyant was said to have channeled the spirit of a 7-year-old girl from the doll and told them her story. The girl often used to play in the area long before houses were built, and suddenly she died mysteriously, leaving this world with unfulfilled desires. Since then, she has been frequenting the lonely halls, looking for someone to play with. The moment she saw the doll, she couldn't resist her urge to play with it, and when young people would play with the doll, she would have some people to play with as well. The 2 trainee girls could not bear her tragic story and let her stay in their care. The girl's name was Annabelle Higgins. Since then, they started treating Annabelle like a living being, as a part of their family. However, Cal was the only person who refused to believe in her story. He considered it a voodoo doll who wanted to trick them and take their advantage, so he was a threat to Annabelle. It was reported that Cal was often plagued with nightmares, and when he woke up one night, he saw Annabelle strangling him, trying to snap the life out of him. Even though he pushed, he could not move her. She was as rigid as a wall. At last, he freed himself, but that wasn't the end. Once, when he was alone with Laura in the apartment, he went into Deidre's room hearing some noises. There was no one in the room except for Annabelle, who was thrown onto the floor. He walked across the room, and just as he was standing over her, he was attacked. Doubling over in pain, he felt like nails digging into his chest. When Laura found him, his shirt was covered in blood. Since that incident, they were sure that Annabelle was set on killing them. They did not waste a minute in contacting the local priest, who alerted his supervisors, and finally, through a string of events, Ed and Lorraine Warren, a couple of paranormal investigators, came to hear about Annabelle. When they came to the apartment and heard all of their testimonials, Ed was sure that it was a case of demonic infestation. There was no Annabelle to begin with. Instead, it was an inhuman spirit who had spoken from the mouth of the unsuspecting medium and tricked them. After Deidre and Laura had agreed to let it possess the doll, It had gotten permission to inflict harm. They even stressed that if it was left unchecked, Annabelle could end up killing them all in the next 1 to 2 weeks. Immediately, Ed got a priest to conduct a cleansing exorcism of the apartment and blessed it along with its residents. Deidre, Laura, and Cal wanted to have nothing to do with the doll and gave it away to Ed and Lorraine Warren, who decided to put it up in their occult museum. So Annabelle was placed in the back seat of their car, where their troubles began. It plagued their car, making it stop several times and causing the steering and brakes to fail. Even Ed lost control of the car and came close to a fatal accident. The next time the car stopped, Ed got out his vial of holy water and splashed it on the doll. It did not bother them for the rest of the ride. Over the next few days, when Ed kept it in his room on a chair, the doll teleported between rooms of the house, and Lorraine, when she was alone, said she heard growling sounds reverberating through the house. When a priest mocked the doll, saying it was just a rag doll and couldn't hurt anyone, his car got into a fatal accident and was destroyed. Through the years, these incidents never stopped happening, and there was one death reported accounting for Annabelle. It became so dangerous that Ed and Lorraine had to put Annabelle into a glass case with a warning reading, "Positively, do not open," in their museum. However, whether the story of Annabelle is legit, nothing can be said. Though this legend inspired the prequel to The Conjuring, there is no actual evidence of the demonic infestation of Annabelle, except for Ed and Lorraine's statements and the testimonials of the affected trio. There is no theory to verify it. What do you think? Did the Warrens lie? Or make a mistake by jumping to conclusions? Tell us in the comments below. And if there are stories you want to be recounted, leave them below as well.